You're listening to Full Circle Weekly News. These articles are compiled by Eric the Unready, and I'm your host, Moss Bliss. This is episode 357, covering week 10, March 4th through 10th, 2024. NixBSD was announced, developing an unofficial offshoot of the NixOS distribution using the FreeBSD kernel instead of the Linux kernel. It uses the Nix package manager, storing the result in subdirectories inside the /nix/store and providing the ability to use several versions of the program. System parameters are configured through one config file, and you can quickly roll back the system to a previous version. RT 1.2.0 has been published, a Tor client written in Rust. The 1.x branch is marked as suitable for use by general users and provides the same level of privacy, usability, and stability as the main C implementation. The code is distributed under the Apache 2.0 and MIT licenses. RT was developed as a modular embeddable library that can be used by various applications. Opus 1.5 audio codec has been released, providing high-quality encoding and minimal latency in bandwidth-constrained applications VoIP telephony. The encoder and decoder reference implementations are licensed under the BSD license. The complete specifications for the Opus format are publicly available, free of charge, and approved as an Internet standard. The codec was created by combining the best of the Kelt codec, developed by Xif.org, and the Silk codec, opened by Skype. Products that support Opus out of the box include the Firefox browser, the GStreamer framework, and the FFmpeg package. The OpenSUSE project devs announced support for System Deboot in OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. Switching to System Deboot will improve boot speed and enhance the security of the boot process. Currently, the support is implemented as an option, and Grub continues to be used by default, with the exception of builds for QEMU. The main goal is to make working with full disk encryption easier and more efficient. When using System Deboot, the operations to decrypt the data and obtain the key are moved to the Linux kernel and to a handler in user space. Snapshot management is integrated into System Deboot, which simplifies booting from individual snapshots and increases the efficiency of organizing kernel updates using the sdboot util utility. FreeBSD 13.3 has been released. Images are generated for AMD 64, i386, PowerPC, PowerPC 64, PowerPC 64LE, PowerPC SPE, ARMv6, ARMv7, AArch64, and RISC-V64 architectures. Additionally, builds have been prepared for virtualization systems and cloud environments. The FreeBSD 13.x branch is being developed in parallel with the FreeBSD 14 branch, which was generated in the fall and will continue to be supported until the end of January 2026. FreeBSD 13.4 is expected to be released in about a year. Microsoft has renamed CBL Mariner to Azure Linux. Microsoft also changed the names of the utilities and replaced the mention of CBL Mariner in the documentation. The first release of the platform is Azure Linux 2.0.20240301, which eliminated the accumulated errors and vulnerabilities in applications. Azure Linux provides a small standard set of basic packages that serve as a universal basis for creating containers, host environments, and services running in cloud infrastructures and on edge devices. More complex and specialized solutions can be created by adding additional packages on top of Azure Linux, but the foundation for all such systems remains the same, making it easier to maintain and prepare updates. The developers of Linux Mint have announced Jargonaut, which attempts to create a simple chat implementation based on the use of the IRC protocol, but is not an IRC client in the traditional sense. Jargonaut provides a simple interface for users to chat, abstracted from IRC. The project code is written in Python and is distributed under the GPL v2 license. The interface is built using the XApp library, which provides an add-on for GTK with elements for unifying work in various user environments. The reason for a new chat application is the end of development of HexChat, which was central to Linux Mint. The HexChat maintainer published version 2.16.2, moved the repository to an archived state, and announced that the project would no longer be maintained in early February. Jargonaut was written using current technologies and embodying the developer's idea of the chat they would like to use. They plan to build in support for the Pastebin service, add the ability to insert images through the Imgur service, provide problem reporting, and implement other functions that are not associated with traditional IRC functions. The Fedora Engineering Steering Committee has approved the removal of the GNOME Session X session package. The change is planned for the release of Fedora 41. The only session supported by default in Fedora Workstation 41 will remain Wayland, but X11 session packages can still be installed from the repositories. The GNOME Session X session package is marked as deprecated, and the GNOME developers intend to stop supporting X11. They also plan the separation of the GNOME Classic Session package, which includes extensions and settings for the GNOME shell to recreate the Classic Session in the style of GNOME 2. 2. The GNOME Classic Session package will continue to be default, but the code for X11 support has now moved to the GNOME Classic Session X11 package, and the main package retains only Wayland-based session support. Fesco also approved the end of support for the X11-based KDE session in Fedora 40 in connection with the transition to the KDE 6 branch where the Wayland protocol is offered by default. X-Wayland continues to be supplied. Testing of the first beta of OpenSUSE Leap 15.6 has begun. The release builds on the core set of packages shared with the SUSE Linux Enterprise 15 SP6 distribution and also includes some custom applications from the OpenSUSE Tumbleweed repository. A universal DVD build is available for download. The release of OpenSUSE Leap 15.6 is expected on June 12, 2024. OpenSUSE Leap 15.6 will be the last release in the 15.x series. Zorin OS 17.1 has been presented based on Ubuntu 22.04. The target audience is novice users who are accustomed to working in Windows. To manage the design, the distribution offers a special configurator that allows you to give the desktop a look typical of different versions of Windows and Mac OS, and includes a selection of programs similar to those that Windows users are accustomed to. Zorin OS 17 was downloaded more than 500,000 times, with 78% of those downloads coming from users of Windows and Mac OS platforms. Zorin OS uses GNOME as its desktop base with a set of its own add-ons and a panel based on Dash-to-Panel and Dash-to-Dock. Zorin Connect is provided for desktop and smartphone integration. In addition to deb packages and Ubuntu repositories, support for Flatpak, AppImage, and Snap formats is enabled by default, with the ability to install programs from FlatHub and SnapStore directories. Postfix Mail Server 3.9.0 was released. The developers also announced the end of support for Postfix 3.5, released at the beginning of 2020. Postfix combines high security, reliability, and performance, which was achieved thanks to a well-thought-out architecture and a fairly strict policy for code design and patch auditing. The project code is written in C and distributed under EPL 2.0 Eclipse public license and IPL 1.0 IBM public license. Bruce Perens presented the first draft of a new post-open zero-cost license aimed at solving the accumulated problems associated with the interaction of open-source developers and commercial companies in the context of obtaining a fair return on commercial use of the code. Companies are asked to pay for the benefits obtained as a result of using open-source software, either by participating in the development or by paying royalties that will be distributed among the direct developers. The key difference between these licenses and, say, the GPL is a contractual component that it can be terminated if the terms are violated. The license also defines the organization Post-Open Administration, acting on behalf of the licensors, being their legal representative, defending their rights if necessary, and distributing the funds received, taking into account the contribution to the development. The structure of the organization has not yet been determined and is the subject of future discussions. The developers of LXQT report that the desktop is 100% Wayland ready. Changes have been made to the LXQT codebase to convert PCMan FMQT to use the Layer Shell Qt component, which allows the desktop to function in Wayland-based environments without additional hacks that bypass compatibility with some composite managers such as LabWC. LXQT can be used with LabWC, Wayfire, Kwin_Wayland, Sway, Hyperlend, and other Wayland-based composite managers. The release of LXQT 2.0, translated to Qt6 and Wayland, is expected in April. The release will feature a new fancy menu by default, which, in addition to categorizing apps, introduces a summary view of all apps and adds a list of frequently used apps. The OpenBSD project developers presented a new release of a portable edition of the LibreSSL 3.9.0 package, a fork of OpenSSL, aimed at providing a higher level of security. The LibreSSL project is focused on high-quality support for the SSL/TLS protocols by removing unnecessary functionality, adding additional security features, and significantly cleaning and reworking the codebase. The LibreSSL 3.9.0 release is considered experimental, developing features that will be included in OpenBSD 7.5. You've been listening to Full Circle Weekly News. For more details, see the next issue of the magazine at fullcirclemagazine.org or check the links in the show notes. You can contact me at bardmoss@pm.me. I'll see you next week.